The Liberal government has announced it is cracking down further on its gun control measures. This past week, hundreds of firearm models and variants were added to the government's list of banned weapons. It builds on the Liberals' long-held promise to decrease gun violence. But questions about the new measures remain. Earlier, I spoke with the Minister of Public Services and Procurement, Yves Duclos. Minister Duclos, thank you so much for making the time.
Hello, Rosemary, and hello to everyone listening.
All of the firearms that were added to this program this week for the gun buyback program, just to increase the number of firearms. But the program itself was announced 4 years ago. And at the press conference this past week, you guys said that only a couple dozen guns had been destroyed. When can Canadians expect this program to really get started, Minister?
Well, thank you for the question. And you did point to 4 years ago, which is indeed when that all started. Now, these weapons are designed to be weapons of war, to be used and designed for battlefields. They are not designed for use in our communities, and they are designed to kill as many people as possible in as little time as possible. That is why, indeed, 4 years ago, we did prohibit 1,500 models of such assault-style weapons. Unfortunately, the arms industry, is quite agile and creative, and new models of such weapons have been designed over the last 4 years. And that's why yesterday we announced an additional 324 models that are now prohibited. The next steps now is next week to make sure that a new evergreen classification system is put into place, which means in practice that all firearms models, restricted, unrestricted, and possibly assault-style weapons, will have to go through clearance by the RCMP to make sure that they are properly assigned in the manner that the RCMP will do. And then, as we said yesterday as well, there are two phases of the compensation, the buyback program that we did announce quite a few years ago, as you said, that will be starting or have started already. The first phase is with shops and stores. That has been tested over the last few weeks. It's done really well. So we are ready to launch it officially for all stores that have been holding these assault-style weapons prohibited since 2020. And in 2025, we will move with phase 2, which is a buyback program from individuals.
Okay, so there was a pilot project, as you said, and that's where some of these restricted weapons were destroyed. When is that actually going to take effect, so that stores that have these guns will be required to send them in and have them destroyed?
With the successful test and pilot of that phase 1 in the last few weeks, we now have the technology to collect, to store, and to share the information that is absolutely necessary for the stores and the company that has been hired by the federal government to buy back these firearms from the stores and the shops. And next week, in fact, in just a few days, now all other shops will be notified of how they can participate in that first phase of the buyback program.
And what will the enforcement be on that front? Will people go to those stores and check? Will they go and collect the guns? How can you enforce that piece?
Well, it will be obviously a joint effort by the firm that is collecting, that is transporting, and then destroying those assault-style weapons. A collaboration between that firm and the shops. There are several hundred of them across Canada that have been holding these now prohibited assault-style weapons for years, and that have been waiting for a proper reimbursement and compensation on the part of the federal government.
Since the government announced this first banning or the buyback program in 2020, there has been an uptick in gun violence in this country. So what difference do you think this will make in terms of how this will affect crime in Canada?
Well, this is one of the many other actions that we need to put into place to protect families and communities against gun violence. Gun violence is something that has been a matter of stress, of catastrophes like we are unfortunately reminding ourselves of today in Polytechnic 35 years ago, in Portapique in Nova Scotia just a few years ago, in New Brunswick, in Dawson College, in my own city here in Quebec City in 2017 with the shooting of 6 Muslim men who were just praying in a mosque in my city. So these are terrible events for which we need to put into place all sorts of actions, including prohibiting assault-style weapons.
Part of the announcement included Minister Blair saying that some of these weapons will not be destroyed and could potentially be sent to Ukraine. How might that part of this work, and how quickly could you get those weapons there?
It is indeed true, as Minister Blair has said, that we have been working with the Ukrainian government over the last few months to see whether some of these assault-style weapons that we currently have in Canada could be used to fight Russia in Ukraine. And the answer is yes. The Ukrainian government has confirmed its interest in getting access to those assault-style weapons, which indeed, as I said earlier, were designed and are made to be on the battlefield in a war context. So these that is will be ongoing, because they obviously will want to procure only new, never used weapons, and it will be a matter of those shops and stores in Canada holding those weapons that would be of better use in Ukraine to work with National Defense under the leadership of Minister Blair to make sure that these arms can be used by the Ukrainian forces.
Okay, Minister, thank you for making the time as always.
Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.
There are some Canadians upset with these measures and worried that they will feel the financial impact of this ban. Earlier, I spoke with an Edmonton gun store owner about his thoughts on the firearm ban. Chris Gubersky, nice of you to make the time.
Thanks for having me.
So what do you make of this decision by the federal government to increase the list of banned firearms by over 300 more models?
Well, I find it very confusing to start, because I was under the impression that the minister was not going to add any more guns to the ban list.
Okay.
So confused.
One of the things that one of the ministers said to me was that gun companies, as soon as they see that things are restricted, some of their weapons are restricted, they go ahead and make another model. Like, they're constantly iterating firearms in order to stay ahead of things. Is that your experience, that firearms are constantly sort of being updated and reinvented?
Well, I think that's just business in general. Since 2020, I've lost 60% of my business, so I have to reinvent the wheel to just try to sell something different to recover those losses.
And why have you lost that much business? Is it because of the buyback announcement?
Well, since 2020, it's been long guns, it's been handguns, and now an additional 324 items added to this list, along with all the accessories that go along with that product.
Tell me, of these now hundreds of weapons that are no longer allowed to be sold, how many would we find in your store?
Out of varieties since day one, I would say, again, I'll base it on what I've lost, probably about 60%.
And so when people come in now and know or hear, I guess, in the coming days that some of the models are now going to be restricted, what kinds of things are you hearing from them?
Well, it's just a confusion. Just, the CFO, Canadian Firearms Office, they're very hesitant to send out information and prepare people for this. They don't send us, the people who they ask to sell and keep track of all this information. They don't send us any directive. They don't send the customer any directive. So it's again, the confusion is out there.
How concerned are you about a financial loss? I don't know what the buyback will be, for instance.
Well, huge. Like the losses that we've sustained over the last 4.5 years, are incredible. I've went from 14 employees to 7 employees, and all 7 of my employees downstairs today are worried about their jobs tomorrow.
What do you say to people who don't understand why people want to have firearms like this? Because obviously the Liberal government says these are weapons of war. What do you say to people who don't understand the interest in these kinds of weapons?
That's a little bit harder question to answer. Again, I think we all know that weapons are out, or sorry, let's say firearms are out there.
Yeah.
And they're only dangerous in the wrong people's hands.
Right.
So for people who are not firearm shooters and who are not hunters, they don't understand. We have some of the strictest laws, firearms laws in the world.
Yeah.
So I think it's just more of a matter of lack of knowledge and not interested in obtaining the knowledge of what firearms do.
Is this a frustrating thing for you? As I imagine you own weapons yourself, and of course you're a merchant.
It's extremely frustrating, because again, I think a lot of people get their information from not reputable sources, and in the same breath, they're comparing Canada and USA, and
Sure.
they're two drastically different markets.
Yeah.
They sell more guns in California than they do in all of Canada, and it's just different. So if you're trying to implement USA gun laws and restrictions and crime into a Canadian environment, they're not comparable.
Chris Gubersky, maybe we could speak again once you get more information, once we get more information about how this will work, and we'll see what the impact is for you.
Sounds good.